What if the villain in your favorite animated movie was actually smarter than the hero the whole time? We usually watch these movies expecting the good guy to win. The brave princess finds her strength. The awkward kid discovers their talent. The underdog pulls off the impossible. And in the end, everything works out. But if you pay attention, there's a pattern hiding in a lot of these stories. Sometimes the villain isn't just stronger or scarier. Sometimes they're simply smarter. They plan ahead. They think things through. They understand how people react. While the hero follows their heart or makes decisions in the heat of the moment, the villain is calm, patient, and already 10 steps ahead. They set up situations. They manipulate others. They create problems before the hero even realizes there's danger. For most of the movie, the villain is actually winning. The hero is usually reacting, trying to fix a mistake, undo a trap, or escape a situation that was carefully designed by someone who already thought about every outcome. And many times, the hero only pulls through because of teamwork, luck, or one sudden realization at the last second. That's what makes these stories so exciting. When the villain is smarter, the tension feels real. It's not just a fight of strength, it's a battle of minds. Today, we're looking at animated movies where the villain wasn't just evil. They were the smartest person in the story. So what does it actually mean for a villain to be smarter than the hero? It's not about having a higher IQ or using big scientific words. In these animated movies, being smarter usually means thinking ahead. It means planning instead of reacting. A smart villain doesn't just wake up and cause chaos. They build a strategy. They understand people. They know what the hero wants. They know what the hero fears. And most importantly, they know how the hero will probably respond. That gives them control. While the hero often acts on emotion, anger, love, jealousy, pride, the villain stays calm. They wait, they set traps, they manipulate others into doing the hard work for them. Sometimes they even convince the hero to help create their own problem. Another big difference is patience. Heroes usually want to fix things fast. Villains are willing to wait months or even years inside the story to make their plan work perfectly. And here's the key detail. Smart villains almost always exploit a weakness. Maybe the hero is insecure. Maybe they're too trusting. Maybe they're desperate to prove themselves. The villain sees that weakness clearly and uses it. That's why, in so many of these films, the hero spends most of the story trying to catch up. The villain already studied the board. The hero just walked into the game. Let's look at some clear examples. In The Lion King, Scar doesn't overpower Mufasa with strength. He outsmarts him. He carefully studies the pride, understands Simba's innocence, and sets up a perfect trap. The stampede wasn't random, it was planned. He manipulates Simba into standing in the exact spot where danger would hit hardest. For most of the movie, Scar wins not because he's stronger, but because he thought it through. In Toy Story 3, Lotso runs Sunnyside Daycare like a controlled system. He creates rules, assigns roles, and uses fear to stay in power. When Woody arrives, he has no idea how deep Lotso's control goes. Lotso already predicted rebellion. He built backup plans. He even turns the other toys against each other. Woody isn't outmatched physically. He's outplayed socially and strategically. Then there's Zootopia. Bellwether hides in plain sight the entire time. She pretends to be small, harmless, and overlooked. Meanwhile, she's carefully creating fear and division across the city. Judy spends most of the movie chasing clues, never realizing the mastermind is someone she trusts. Bellwether doesn't rely on power. She relies on manipulation and timing. And in The Incredibles, Syndrome doesn't try to beat superheroes with strength alone. He studies them. He records their abilities. He designs weapons specifically to counter their powers. He even tricks Mr. Incredible into walking straight into a trap by playing on his ego. For most of the story, Syndrome is completely in control. In all these cases, the hero isn't dumb, but the villain is simply more prepared. And preparation changes everything. Some animated stories feel almost like long TV dramas. The conflict builds slowly. The villain doesn't rush. And that's where intelligence really stands out. In Frozen, Hans doesn't act like a typical villain at first. He doesn't threaten anyone. He doesn't show his true intentions. Instead, he studies the situation. He sees Anna's loneliness. He sees the kingdom's instability. He steps in as the perfect solution. By the time his real plan is revealed, he's already positioned himself as the hero in everyone else's eyes. Anna didn't lose because she was weak. She lost because she trusted too quickly, and Hans knew she would. In Big Hero 6, Callahan plays the long game. He fakes his own death. He hides behind a mask. He allows everyone to believe he's gone while he carefully builds his revenge plan. Hero is brilliant, yes, but he's also emotional and grieving. Callahan uses that emotional chaos to move unnoticed. For most of the story, Hero is reacting to destruction that was already calculated and set in motion. And in Tangled, Mother Gothel's intelligence isn't about science or machines. It's psychological. She spends years shaping Rapunzel's worldview. She plants fear. She creates dependence. She makes Rapunzel doubt herself. That kind of control takes patience and understanding. Rapunzel isn't trapped by chains. She's trapped by manipulation. In each of these stories, the villain doesn't charge into battle. They observe. They plan. They wait. And that patience makes them dangerous. When powers and magic enter the picture, you'd think strength would decide everything. But in many animated superhero and fantasy stories, intelligence is what really controls the outcome. Take Megamind. At first, Megamind looks like the typical over-the-top villain. But when you really look at it, he constantly outsmarts Metroman. He builds advanced technology. He studies his enemies' weaknesses. And in the end, he even figures out something no one else realizes. That Metroman secretly stepped away from being a hero long before anyone noticed. Megamind wins not because he's stronger, but because he thinks differently. In The Incredibles, Syndrome proves again that brains can compete with superpowers. He designs robots that adapt during battle. Each time they fight a hero, they learn and improve. That's strategic thinking. Mr. Incredible is powerful, but Syndrome prepares for every move in advance. Without teamwork, the heroes would have lost. Then there's Hercules. Hades can't overpower Zeus directly, so he makes deals. He manipulates Hercules. He waits for the perfect moment when Hercules gives up his strength willingly. That's not brute force. That's timing and strategy. These stories show something important. Power without planning can fail. Strength without awareness can be exploited. And many times, the villain understands the rules of the world better than the hero does. They know exactly where to push. Sometimes the villain doesn't just stay ahead. Sometimes they actually win, at least in a mental or emotional way. In Coco, Ernesto de la Cruz builds an entire legacy based on a lie. For years, no one questions him. He controls the story. He controls the fame. He even controls how history remembers him. Miguel spends most of the movie admiring the wrong person because Ernesto was smart enough to hide the truth for decades. Even when the truth finally comes out, you realize something powerful. Ernesto succeeded for a very long time. He shaped the world's memory in his favor. In Wreck-It, Ralph King Candy secretly rewrites the code of an entire game. He erases Vanellope's identity and convinces everyone she's a glitch. That's not just physical control. That's rewriting reality itself. Ralph spends most of the story believing the wrong version of events because the villain was clever enough to change the system from the inside. Then there's Kung Fu Panda. Tai Lung isn't just strong. He understands the system of power in the valley. He knows how badly everyone wants the Dragon Scroll. And in the end, the big secret is that there is no secret. The power was never in the scroll. In a strange way, Tai Lung was right to question everything. He lost the fight, but the truth exposed how much everyone misunderstood what they were chasing. In these stories, the villain may fall in the final scene. But mentally, they were ahead for most of the journey. And that changes how we see the hero's victory. There's a reason so many animated movies make their villains intelligent instead of just powerful. A smart villain makes the story stronger. If the bad guy is only strong, the solution is simple. The hero just has to become stronger. But if the villain is smarter, the hero has to grow in a deeper way. They have to learn. They have to question themselves. They have to slow down and think. That creates tension. When the villain is always one step ahead, the audience feels nervous. We start wondering, how is the hero going to fix this? It's no longer just about winning a fight. It's about solving a problem. Smart villains also make the world feel more real. In real life, problems don't usually come from obvious threats. They come from manipulation, planning, and hidden motives. Seeing that reflected in animated stories makes them more relatable, even if the setting includes talking animals or superheroes. Most importantly, intelligent villains force heroes to earn their victory. And that makes the ending feel satisfying. These stories aren't just entertaining. They reflect something real. Being a good person doesn't automatically make you the smartest person in the room. Having strong morals doesn't mean you always see every angle. Sometimes, the people who think ahead, stay patient, and understand human behavior have the advantage. That doesn't mean the villain is right. But it does show that intelligence and morality aren't the same thing. And maybe that's why these animated movies stick with us. They remind us that heart matters. But so does strategy. So here is the conclusion of the dangerous power of a brilliant villain. The most unforgettable animated villains weren't just loud or scary. They were patient, strategic, observant. For most of the story, they were ahead. And that's what makes the hero's journey so powerful. Not because they were the smartest from the start, but because they learned how to win anyway.